This episode is brought to you by Philly Gemstones.
There are fantastic jewelry designers, there are fantastic ideas, but such an important turning point has not been done yet. And for the moment, from an historical point of view, I think that we are stuck with Elsa Peretti. This was the last revolution in jewelry design.
Welcome to If Jewels Could Talk. I'm Carol Woolton, the voice of jewelry, an author, broadcaster, and the woman who initiated the role of jewelry editor at magazines like Tatler and British Vogue. This is a podcast for everyone, for people who do like jewelry, for people who don't realise they like jewelry, and anyone intrigued by fascinating facts, new ideas, and forgotten histories. So please join me as I tell sparkly tales, meeting all sorts of people, delving into 4 centuries of jewelry culture, and investigate what's happening now. I'm delighted this morning that we are going to talk about the great Elsa Peretti, the trailblazing woman and legendary jewelry designer who pioneered jewelry that women could buy for themselves and turned the tide of 20th century jewelry design. We are going to talk about some of her iconic designs, her personal vision that changed the way women wore jewels forever, her collaboration with Tiffany that began in 1974, and even half a century later, some of these designs still appear on celebrities' wrists as the most fresh and most modern. And I'm thrilled that we have here Stefano Palumbo, who is the member of the board of Nando and Elsa Peretti's Foundation and acted as Elsa's right hand for over 25 years. Thank you, Stefano, for joining us this morning. It's so great that you've taken time out of your schedule, dashing between Barcelona and Rome, taking care of all of Elsa's foundations and houses and jewelry production to join us. So first of all, Stefano, I wanted to talk about that incredible image by Helmut Newton of Elsa when she was modelling. It's on a Manhattan rooftop. She's dressed in a sort of playful fashion take on a bunny outfit designed by the US fashion superstar Halston, and she's got the Manhattan skyline behind her. It's like an iconic glamour 70s image. How did that come about, that image?
Carol, this is not just a picture in my eyes. This is really something more important. It is the synthesis of a unique period that marked New York as the capital of art and culture in the 70s. It was a picture done in 1975, exactly. So Elsa had already signed her contract with Tiffany, and it was in her apartment, in her penthouse in New York. It was the penthouse that Halston gave to Elsa when he moved to 65th Street and to the Olympic Tower. It was done at 11 o'clock in the morning. Elsa, yes, was, as you correctly say, she had this bunny dress done by Halston, but she was also wearing her diamonds by the yard. And what she was very proud of this picture is that she was wearing the Ferragamo shoes of her mother that were perfect for that dress. And when she came down and she arrived to the terrace where Helmut Newton was waiting for her to do this shot, what Elsa always repeated to me is that Helmut was flabbergasted when he saw her, and he did the most important picture of his life, in my eyes. And imagine that Christie's sold one copy of this picture in 2020 for $400,000. I mean, this is more than iconic. Because
it does sum up, as you said, that kind of glamour, sexually charged moment where everything was coalescing in New York. And it's all in that one image. But she was a model, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. And at the time, obviously, New York was very important. As modeling, she started in Spain, as everybody knows, when she moved to Barcelona when she was 21, when she ran away from home, and she started working for fashion model, but also for great artists. The famous picture of Elsa with Salvador Dali. I mean, Dali in Portligat did an incredible work on Elsa in the sense that she will never be the same after modeling for Dali for that shooting. But at the same time, coming back to New York, of course, she was a model at the time, but she immediately came into what people called the crowd of Studio 54, which was not exactly that. It was a little bit stigmatized. It was, in my eyes, it was composed by incredibly sophisticated artists that influenced Elsa very much. And this is when she turned into something more, which was her desire to become a real artist and a jewelry designer, and what she did, thanks to the people that she met in New York.
But tell me what her family background was like. She was this sort of unconventional beauty, a very androgynous style. But what was the background that she came from that formed her?
Well, Elsa was the daughter of her father. Her father was the founder of the most important, a giant oil company in 1933. The influence of her father was extremely important. She told something to the Wall Street Journal a few years ago in which she said, whatever I did it for him. And this is not the case, that the fact that she dedicated her charity foundation to him at the beginning in the year 2000, because she really wanted to honor the memory of the man who was the most important man of her life. Obviously, she came from a very wealthy family. Her mother was an aristocrat artist that also influenced her very much. She was a poetess, but her father, also the capacity in business of her father was extremely clear in Elsa's development in her professional life. And at the beginning, obviously, belonging to such typical traditional family of Italy of the 50s, the family was not exactly happy about Elsa's choices to become a model or then to make jewelry design. But
so did she fight them very early on?
Very
did she
much.
go on her own path?
And as soon as she could at 21, because at the time to be of major age, you have to be 21, she immediately ran away from home. She wrote a letter to her father and she left. And she moved to Milan, at the beginning working with Dado Torrigiani, who was a very famous architect at the time. And she started to do her first, something that she never developed seriously somehow, this interior design kind of things that are so important in every single houses that she built or lived in the rest of her life. And then she moved to Spain. Barcelona, for sure, was extremely important. But at the time, Barcelona was not the Barcelona that we know nowadays. So it was quite complicated to start working with. But the presence of Salvador Dalí and of all the artists belonging to this important movement, which was called La Gauche Divine at the time, like Xavier Corberó, who was her lover for a long time, who was a very important sculptor, Spanish sculptor, or Colita, who is the most important living photographer in Spain now, really changed her approach to aesthetic. And she started to see things from a different angle, starting from Barcelona.
So do you think it was that moment that really trained her eye for things that could be treasures, things, objects, however humble of material? Or do you think, she must have grown up with some beautiful things.
Yes, she grown up, but she probably didn't crystallize them since the beginning. Everybody knows the story, for example, how the bone calf started, Because when she was a child, close to Elsa's apartment in Rome, in Via Veneto, there is a very famous Capucine chapel, which is done only by bones of the monks that died in this church.
Yes, I've been there, because actually it's also formed an inspiration for Delfina de Lettres.
Yes.
Who of the Fendi family. She loved that place.
And Delfina appreciate very much Elsa. I saw some pieces that she did inspired or using Elsa's pieces as well. Anyway, that chapel was, it's shocking. For me, anyway, Elsa was shocked because she was a little girl. But what happened is that she stolen one bone. And she came back home with this bone. And as soon as her mother realized that she did such a thing, she was furious. And she sent her back to the chapel, giving back the bone. And this kind of forbidden thing remained with Elsa all over her life. And imagine the moment she arrived to Barcelona with all the Gaudí buildings that are so much inspired by bones. Every single column at the Sagrada Familia is a bone. It's a huge bone. So this connection between what happened in Rome and what she saw in Barcelona made something changing. And so the bone calf, obviously, it was developed through the years. Elsa was very slow, but thanks God she was slow because the final result was perfect. And with the help especially of Xavier Corberó, who was the sculptor I was mentioning before, she started in Barcelona to learn how to work with metals. And this is the way it happened that the bone calf started to become alive, and is still one of the most important and iconic pieces because it's so new, it's so modern that it doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, at the Oscars this year, Venus Williams was wearing it, Liza Minnelli was wearing it. I went to a lunch the other day. Trinny Woodall, the great makeup, has a big makeup brand, global makeup brand, was wearing it. Opened the Sunday Times style magazine this weekend. Fashion shoot with the bone calf. I mean, it is just relentless in the way that people still are drawn to it.
Yes, there is something fetishistic also with this bone, because people wear it all the time, like the diamonds by the yard. No? It's like a lingerie. You never take it off. But coming back to the Oscar night, yes, you're right. But I have to say something because, yes, Hailey Bieber, Venus Williams, everybody, fantastic. But Liza was wearing her own ones. And this is the big difference, because Minnelli has always worn Peretti all over her life, deeply understanding its meaning, its aesthetic sense, and the elegance. She was like a queen on a throne in her wheelchair. And she managed also to obscure even the immensity of Lady Gaga.
So when Elsa arrived in New York in 1968, did Liza Minnelli become a friend immediately? Because you were talking about the friends in those years that were so influential, the Andy Warhols, Diana Vreeland, the great Vogue editor. I mean, how important was that group of friends to her?
They were extremely important from an inspirational point of view, because Elsa's jewelry made sense, this is my personal opinion, made sense when Halston was pairing the jewels with the ultra sweet creations. Made sense when Liza was wearing them in every single concert she did. Made sense when Hero was taking these incredible pictures in this fairy tale atmosphere, and when Joe Eula was drawing them, sketching them on Lorraine Bacall, for example. And this is the perfect connection, because it's the final result is a work of art. Liza, Joe, Hero, obviously, yes, Andy Warhol, also the other people. But this group of people that I just mentioned, in my eyes, were the most important for her inspiration. Because she was thinking about what Liza was wearing, like Halston was thinking how to make the perfect dress for Liza's concert. And the final result was an interpenetration of a group of incredible artists that were in New York in that very period, and that will never come again.
And they lived fast, didn't they? It was, chain smoking, vodka, Studio 54... I mean, incredible party-type atmosphere, as well as working incredibly hard.
It was fast. This is right, also because many of them died. But, for example, the collaboration within... I read an article a few days ago of the Boston Museum in which they explained that the artistic collaboration between Elsa Peretti and Hero is the longest collaboration between two artists in history.
Really?
I didn't know, and this is a research that the Boston Museum did, and it was very impressive because it's true. Hero was 90, she was 80, and they were still on the phone constantly, thinking about the next picture, thinking about the new advertising, and talking about whatever. This means that even if it was fast, even if it was with vodka and the rest, the content was so strong and profound that cannot be cancelled. They were working somehow. I mean, also Diana Vreeland was there, but who cannot say that Diana was somebody working like hell? I mean, she and the importance of Diana Vreeland in inspiring Elsa and in helping Elsa when she was modeling is incredible. There is a beautiful book that has been published where there are all the letters that Diana Vreeland was used to write to all the magazines or to the designers. And she was supporting Elsa so much because, as you say correctly before, she was so different. At the time, models had to be blonde, blue eyes, perfectly Barbies. And Elsa was exactly the opposite. She was like a male, tall, like, like a giraffe. But Diana Vreeland immediately understood the importance of being different. And this kind of difference remains with Elsa all the time, in the bad and in the good, because obviously she was temperamental, as everybody said, and Holston experienced it very well, unfortunately. But being different is the most important characterization of Elsa Peretti till the end of her days.
So Holston really was the defining relationship in those years, wasn't he, in their collaboration? Would you go as far as to say that she was really designing with him on his collection?
No, I think that there was a huge esteem and respect, but they have never created together. Theirs was, as I said before, like an aesthetic interpenetration. One inspired the other in a total equal way. And the masterpiece, was the perfume bottle.
Will you describe that in case people don't know what you're talking about?
It was the first time that Holston decided to make a bottle without a label, for example. And but it was so recognizable because Elsa designed it starting from the shape of a teardrop that changed a little bit and then became the Holston bottle. And it was so recognizable without the label, that was so revolutionary as an idea. And imagine that the enormous success they had. In 2 years, they sold $85 million in sales. And it was the second top-selling perfume in history after Chanel No. 5.
That's unbelievable. In that short period of time.
Exactly. And it was not only because of the beautiful taste of the perfume. It was also for the incredible news in the shape of the bottle. And then the bottle became another bottle, and then this bottle became the famous, everything started. The idea of the bottle containing something remains with Elsa all the time, and people understand it, because the famous classical silver bottle that you have seen in so many pictures was her first design.
So you've alluded to their tempestuous relationship. I think a lot of us watched Halston recently, the Netflix series with Ewan McGregor playing the fashion designer. And in it we see Elsa throwing a sable coat that he'd given her, burning it on a fire because it had a row. Is that true?
Well, a lot of people had gossiped around this episode and forgetting the importance of the artistic relationship between these two giants. Yes, I was not there, of course, but I read what...
You might have snatched it off the fire.
But I read what Joe Eula wrote in his memories, what Bob Colacello wrote in his book, and also it is mentioned in the Andy Warhol's diaries. So, yes, the sable coat was the compensation for the bottle of perfume. Halston asked Elsa, do you want $25,000 or do you want a sable coat? And she chose for the sable coat. What happened in that moment, I don't really believe it is so much important, but for sure it was thrown away in the fireplace. Their relationship didn't end as in the TV series is explained, but they keep on getting along and getting together. Obviously, it was one of these crazy, shocking moments that happened in the life of two people that were connected not only from a professional relationship, but from a profound sense, as I said, of respect, esteem, and love. Elsa considered Holston the most important man of her life. He gave her so many advices. He was really, and don't forget, he was the one who introduced Elsa to Tiffany. And this has changed the history of Elsa and of Tiffany forever.
And didn't he give her the advice to make her jewellery always in small, medium and large sizes?
Because at a certain moment Elsa was worried that her jewellery were too expensive. She was confused and she didn't know how to approach the fact that, and she asked Olson for an advice, and she said immediately, Elsa, make them small, medium, and large. And it was a huge success. Since now, if you go to Tiffany and you want a bone cuff, for example, you have 3 sizes or whatever else. Also because women are different. There are women that are tall, women that are short, women that are different also in terms of from where they come from. No, a German woman is totally different from a Japanese woman. And you need to tailor on them the jewel if you want that this woman really feel comfortable with that.
So the first piece of jewellery she designed was a small bottle pendant that you could either put scent in or a flower. But that wasn't for Halston, was it? That was for another fashion designer.
Yes, she did it for herself starting. The first sample, she started to do it for herself. It was 1969. So really much before everything started. At the time, Elsa had a beautiful relationship with Giorgio di Sant'Angelo. And once that he saw the first sample, he immediately decided to produce it for the catwalk. And he put a little rose, a little blossom of a rose on the top of this bottle, and it was an incredible success. Everybody took pictures. It was in every single fashion magazine at the time. She did it with this handcrafter who passed away, whose name is Senor Abad, who was the first one Elsa worked with at the end of the 60s in Barcelona. I mean, he was extremely important in her professional career because he really understood, even if he was somebody doing little things in a little laboratory in the Gracia neighborhood. When Elsa met people that understood the way she was seeing things, the result was incredibly perfect.
So she discovered her own sleek, minimal aesthetic, and particularly working in silver. What was it about silver that she preferred?
Well, talking about the bottle obviously started in silver, but as you know, she developed it in green jade or in rock crystal. There is a connection. Then we will talk about this. But obviously, yes, the passion for silver started because it was cheaper and because it was easy to work. This is also this, because Elsa was doing them with her hands at the beginning, and she didn't study for this. I mean, it was a development in her work. And in the 70s, silver was really neglected. And she succeeded to reintroduce it at the top levels as a real precious metal. And most of all, she succeeded to convincing Tiffany to bring it back, because at the time, really, Tiffany was not comfortable with silver. And obviously, the touch, because for Elsa it was extremely important to touch whatever she was wearing. And silver is shine, is smooth. And little by little, yes, she converted to gold some pieces, but it had to be gold for a reason.
So do you think it's the sort of absence of colour in silver that suited her minimalist look that she wanted?
Also, the reflections. The light that comes from silver is not the same light that comes from gold. The touching of silver is very similar when you touch a green jade or when you touch the rock crystal. It's like a baby skin.
And then she seemed to tap into all these sort of natural organic forms. Very simple, things we've all seen a million times, but wouldn't ever recreate in her vision. The way she recreated it was extraordinary. The teardrop, the bean, the open heart. I mean, shapes that we've all seen, but she made them her own and made it so that every single generation then rediscovers it in her vision.
Yes, it's true. She never copied nature, but she did something that recalls what, a teardrop or a bean. Yes, this is the artistic part of Elsa, because just recreating nature, it's very simple. But to make it your own piece and to make people understand that this is a teardrop and that you have to wear it around your neck in order not to have it in your eyes, is such a strong message that people, this is why we were talking about before, about the kind of, when you feel that you want this piece for you and you feel it that you don't want to take it away, not even when you go to sleep. It's really unique. And yes, but not only this, because if you think about the claw necklace started with the tooth of a tiger or of a bird, I don't remember. And then it was developed, and it became one of the most incredible pieces. Always at the Boston Museum, I saw the first sample. They have it, I don't know how they get it, because neither Elsa had this copy. It was in ivory. At the time, it was allowed. And it is so incredible to see how in the beginning of the 70s, Elsa was really doing something that has been never seen, and that you feel that it is a tooth but you don't really see it, like the open heart. It's not nature, but only her was able to see the heart in the middle of this vacuum, which was inspired, yes, of course, Henry Moore, this kind of artist, but the final result was really to see things from a different angle, to be different, and to make something that was never done before. And obviously, a shell became a cuff, a scorpion became a necklace, a snake became a belt. This, once that started, was impossible to be stopped. And then her love for nature was also, as you know, Carol, in her charity foundation, because she was always very much involved in preserving wildlife, animals, and the conservation of the environment. So it is all over her life. And the choice to live in the countryside in the last period of her life, taking care also of the aesthetic.
So Holston decided to introduce her to Tiffany. Was it John Loring in those days, or was that pre-John Loring?
No, John Loring was not involved. I think it was previous. And for sure, Holston and Elsa went to Tiffany with Kerry Donovan and with George O'Brien. And at Tiffany, there was Walter Howing, who was the chairman of the board,
president.
And Harry Platt, who was the president. Yes, and I remember always this. And Elsa was wearing a Holston kaftan, and she was with this Spanish peasant basket full of cigarettes and makeup, and she arrived like this. But why it was a success? Because it was the perfect moment. Platt said that they were looking for somebody who could capture the mood of the young woman as well as of the old woman. Someone who could make jewels women could wear with jeans as well as with their bone gowns. And she was there. It was the perfect moment.
It was sort of a new sense of freedom. And I guess women were looking for something a bit more fresh and liberated, and they were dressing in a different way, as you say, this much more sort of kaftan style and the sort of formality and big match sets of jewellery that people have been selling suddenly seemed very old-fashioned and matronly, didn't they?
Yes, absolutely. And especially jewels that women could buy by themselves, without a man. I mean, to make it affordable was always for Elsa a strong point. The first diamonds by the yard were sold at the beginning, when she introduced the collection, were sold for $85, something like this, and it was a 0.3 carats. I mean, this was another important message for women at the time, in the 70s. You don't need a man to buy you jewelry. You can do it. You can make it yourself.
Or a diamond. Your first diamond can be your own. And you can have a stream of them that go around your neck.
Yes, exactly. It depends. This is why it's by the yard.
And I read in the first kind of couple of years, Tiffany sold about 2 miles of diamonds by the yard.
Yes, it became the most copied jewelry in the history. This is also to be said, because nobody thought to mount diamonds like this in the past. Elsa, obviously, she was inspired by her grandmother, who was wearing something very similar, and so she thought about this. But the idea to put one after the other on a necklace, like spot of lights, like drops of lights, made the diamonds completely different. And the name Diamonds by the Yard was given by Holston. It was a Holston idea.
Was it?
Yes. And this is why I always told you that Holston, whatever the TV series can say, whatever it happened with the sable coat, the artistic relationship was so strong and so important for both of them, that there should be studied more in my eyes.
And, you talked about some of the other materials that she worked with, lacquer, rock crystal, jade, and this was all quite inspired by her love of Japan, wasn't it?
Yes, but we have to remember that Elsa did her first world tour in 1969 with Paco Rabanne, so before Tiffany. Paco Rabanne is still alive. He's a fantastic gallery owner. He has an incredible art gallery in Barcelona. He's 101. They were friends in Barcelona. He took her to make this tour, and they went to all the East, and Japan was too much important for Elsa. When she came back with Harry Platt, when she came back with Tiffany, it was even difficult to explain to an American company the importance of lacquer, for example, or to explain the importance of, also China with the green jade, and Jaipur. Okay, let's do one by one. Lacquer became so much important because, in my eyes, Elsa was attracted by the fact that it was so light. It's so light. And so this magnolia wood, where it is done with this traditional 3, 4, 6 times lacquer that they do one by one, that make it different one by one, the kind of color that this jewel can have, even if there is not a precious metal, it becomes a piece of jewelry because of the work that there is behind, of the respect of this handcraftery. And so the bamboo purse, the evening bags that she did, obviously they were inspired by the Spanish basket of the peasants, but they became the most incredible pieces that, in my eyes, have been never created. And she succeeded to put together Japanese artisans that were doing the bamboo, and then the Chinese artisans that were doing the little round green jade to close the bag, and then the leather artisans. So, this is quite a job, trust me, because artisans prefer to work to make a final jewel.
So she was putting in complex cultural references into her designs, but also getting the craftsmen in those environments to create these pieces.
Exactly. She was extremely important for the craftsmen because the ones who succeeded to understand her vision became artists as well. And nowadays I still work with some of them that started to work with Elsa 50 years ago, and they are incredibly capable to understand the final production. But imagine in Jaipur, when she went to India and she decided to, her idea has always been to do this gold bra. And this is why we were talking about the importance of gold when it makes sense. The gold bra, it was really different, but it's really Peretti. It's the way metal become really like a textile, and it goes on your body, and it really take the shape of your body. Imagine that a scarf, a mesh scarf, is composed by approximately 43,000 links. So imagine the work that there is behind one of these pieces. And she succeeded to find a company in India that was able to teach to another company in US, which was called Whiting and Davis, thanks to the help of Samuel Beiser, who was the first director of the FIT in the jewel department. And they are still the wife of Samuel who's doing this incredible piece of art, the mesh. And it's a top selling for Tiffany because it's unique.
Did Walter Hoving just say, Elsa, go do what you want, work with who you want, come up with whatever you want, or did they try and influence her in any way?
It was always a struggle. She was fighting all the time, and fighting with the American businessmen at the time was not so easy for a woman. She was really, imagine how much she struggled for having her own advertising, which was, it's important because it is exactly the way she wanted to be presented to the public. An artist needs to be known, and you need to find a photographer, an artist that is able to understand who you are and what is the message behind the advertising. And you can believe that at the beginning at Tiffany, they were able to understand the creativity of an artist, of a Japanese artist like Hiro. No. It was very difficult for the iconic picture of the bone on a real bone, of the bone calf on a real bone, with all the little bugs that are, because there is always something alive. Elsa always wanted something alive in her picture. So find the little bugs in Connecticut, no, wrong color, right color. So, at Tiffany, they were like, they say that, no, it's too much. But struggling and being so stubborn has made her possible to change the company somehow.
And she was such a perfectionist in everything she did. I guess she drove through these designs, the materials, working with the craftsman, as well as you say, the the bureaucracy at a corporation like Tiffany.
Yes, and as I said before, she mentioned it always, yes, I'm slow. But I'm slow, of course I'm slow, because sometimes some pieces are still not finished for her. I mean, obviously, for us, they are absolutely perfect. But I remember how long she took to finish one glass, for example. Years. Because she always said it is not absolutely perfect, and nobody was able to see the problem. It was absolutely perfect.
And very much jewellery was not, even though she had her fashion background and emerged through it, jewellery to her was not fashion. It should never be something that was discarded for something new in the future.
This is difficult to make it understand to the nowadays world. For sure, whatever design we are talking about, Elsa, we are talking about designed 40, 50 years ago. And they are still top selling. So maybe she was right. It's not fashion.
And I think the other legacy from her fashion background was that jewellery should be comfortable, because she suffered a lot as a model wearing kind of very uncomfortable accessories, didn't she? And thought whatever it is, it should really feel as part of the woman's body. Did she adapt them to her own body? Did she try them out to make sure they were comfortable?
Every single piece was worn for years before putting into production. And I make an example, the earrings. No, to be sure that earrings do not go into your hair, or that are not too heavy, or a bangle, or just a single bracelet. If you do like this as a woman, you have the risk. If you touch your hand or your hair with your hand, and you are wearing a bracelet that can be attached to your hair, this is very uncomfortable. Or thinking about how to close a necklace behind you. If you don't have a man to do it, you have to do it by your own. You have to feel comfortable before you go out at night. And so these kind of little details were extremely important for her, even more than the design. And she was wearing them constantly. At the end, then many of them became her jewelry. I mean, she was wearing the bone cuff all over her life. She has never taken it off. And the diamonds by the yard as well. Very little, but always on her neck.
And she must have really enjoyed her collaboration with Tiffany, because she stayed for so long. And I guess at some point she did have the decision whether or not to just create on her own and create the Elsa Peretti stores even. And she obviously chose not to.
No, she has never thought about this, or at least she never wanted to. Not that she didn't thought, but she never wanted to. Her marriage, her wedding with Tiffany was something, maybe it was her education, no? The 50s Italian education. You get married, you remain married all over the time of your life. So, no, I believe that with Tiffany it was, in the good and in the bad, obviously you discuss, but it was something that it was not touchable for her. She respected the company, especially at the beginning with chairman of the board like Bill Cheney. I mean, Mike Kowalski, they were so important, especially Bill Cheney. I mean, William Cheney was really not only the chairman of the board of the company, but it was a friend. And somebody who really understood Elsa in the 80s, and he struggled for her. He was the one who really, the company was able to stand by her, and she was very trustful.
Well, Michael Kowalski said that, you know, with Elsa, they moved beyond jewelry into design history. It really was that important to them.
It's absolutely true. He said this sentence at the opening of the permanent collection that the British Museum did years ago. I remember it was an incredible speech, and it was really felt by Mike Kowalski. He was so proud to be there and to honor Elsa with such an important. It was the first time that one of the, most important museum in the world was honoring Elsa, but also his company. And it will remain forever.
And what do you think she'd think of the new incarnation of Tiffany now owned by LVMH?
Oh, she had not the time. At the time, she was not so much, everything happened so close to her passing away.
Yes.
And so she was not worried. She was absolutely, she knew that her contract will be respected and she wanted to work. I cannot say anything that she said regarding this movement. She was absolutely excited to go ahead. Obviously, she was tired. She was older. Everything was more complicated, but she was creating since the last moment of her life. She was there thinking about her job, her pieces, and Tiffany.
What was the last piece she was working on?
The last piece Elsa was thinking about, was dreaming about. It's not only thinking, she was really dreaming to do this piece, is a snake necklace completely done in carved black jade. And it's an incredible job, very difficult to make it so with the movement. Yes. And she asked Mr. Chu to start working on it. Mr. Chu is, Jonas Chu, is an incredible handcrafter based in Hong Kong. And he worked with Elsa since 50 years. He started with Angela Cummings. You remember Angela Cummings?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
she was absolutely fantastic, but so different from Elsa. Absolutely different. And Mr. Chu was so in love with the jewels of Angela Cummings because there was such kind of lot of work in doing every single details. And when Elsa arrived and she just wanted the bean in green jade, he was in shock because he said it's too simple. And then he realized that it was not simple at all to make it perfect. And now I hope that Mr. Chu is able to fulfill this desire and to make at least one of a kind, because it will be fantastic.
So it's not something that will go into big production, but you hope... I guess it's too difficult with the jade, with the carving, as you say.
It will not be in big production. I think it will be a job that for doing one of these, you have to work for months. And I believe that it will be probably one of a kind or a special production for a period. Let's see what happens. They are really working because all the skin of the snake has to be done piece by piece and to be connected piece by piece and engraved. It's not easy. In green jade would have been beautiful, but let's start with the black jade and let's see what happens.
Why did she like snakes so much?
Because snakes were everywhere in the countryside where she was used to stay in San Martivel, and like scorpions. Also, scorpions are scaring, but at the same time, she was so impressed by the complexity of their skeleton, of the way they move and the way they are done. So this is why she was always collecting all the snakes, all the skins of the snakes, observing them constantly in order to make the final production, which is not exactly a snake, it's something absolutely different from all the jewelry designers had designed snake necklaces. But none of them is comparable with what Elsa did. And the final result is absolutely different. Love for nature, love for the complexity of the skeleton. This is the starting point.
And she did, as you say, the last part of her life, so much time was taken up restoring this rural Spanish village at San Martivel in Catalan that she bought in the 60s. And will that be... I know she had a big collection of objects there that she collected, probably like the snake skin. And will that remain like that as part of the foundation, Stefano?
San Martivel, in my eyes, is not only a group of houses. It's not only the shelter where she wanted to stay after coming back from New York, Studio 54, to be creative. It is something more important. The more and more I stayed in San Martivel, I realized that it was her final masterpiece. Which is not completed. It was a way, buying a house after the other in this village and to make them so Peretti, and we come back to the idea of the interior designer, of the atmosphere that you create in a house, of the kind of light, of the kind of flowers, of every single detail. This made San Martivel a piece of art that is still not completed because she didn't want to complete. She wanted to keep on working on it. And I know that there are so many pictures in many magazines that take the beauty of...
We did it in Vogue a couple of times,
Exactly.
Big stories of her at home in San Martivel.
And I remember the photographer who came, and then you realize that at the end, instead of the dining room, of the living room, the most beautiful room is the kitchen, for example. she also obliged the photographer of Vogue not to take the picture of the most beautiful place where Liza Minnelli was seated, but the most incredible attention for details in a room that is normally not so much important for a magazine like Vogue, like a kitchen, like a bathroom, like a wardrobe. So for me, it's important. Yes, as you correctly say, there are a lot of memories, and all over her life is in Saint-Martin. When she decided to move from her apartment in New York was a few months before she passed away. And so the move arrived to Saint-Martin, and I had the privilege to be with her in order to open every single box and to put every single thing. It was a cascade of memories. It was a sad moment. It was not easy for her to go through an entire life in New York. But everything fitted perfectly in Saint-Martin, and she succeeded to put everything in the right position and to organize an archive that is still ongoing. But she did an incredible job by herself, every single letter, papers, photograph, Polaroids, these kind of things. So Saint-Martin is the genius loci, I don't know how to say in English, is really the heart, the soul of everything Elsa did, much more than New York.
Was she sad to leave New York?
No, she was absolutely ready to leave. She thought a lot. The last time she went to New York, it was for, I think it was the 35 years with Tiffany. And we went together, so it was more than 10 years ago. And we went together. She spent like 3-4 months. Then she left the apartment, and I believe she decided from that moment on that it was that when she closed that door, it was really, the door was closed. And she never went back to New York. And at a certain moment, she decided to leave that apartment, which was an historical penthouse, because as I told you, it was the place where she met Holston, where she was staying with Holston. And it was the apartment of the picture of Helmut Newton. It's the same terrace. But the door was closed forever. I understood it at the beginning. She had not the courage maybe to do the move, but then she did it. And once the move was done, she passed away.
It's rather poignant, isn't it, that just as she got settled, everything was where she wanted it, and then she passed away, because this was a shock for you.
But this comes back to the story of the education of the 50s. No, she was a woman of the Italian post-World War, and so educated to discipline. She was very disciplined. Her duty was the most important things, whatever the duty should be. But in this case, she really wanted to put everything in order. And she obviously, nobody was thinking about Elsa was passing away. It was absolutely not expected. But somehow she didn't want to postpone it. And she was working on this archive all day long. We started at 9 o'clock in the morning, finishing at 8 o'clock in the night, every single day. Till the moment she said, okay, it's done. Now everything is in order. Whatever I want to keep in the archive is there, and whatever I don't want, I threw it away. So it was the way she was working, and it was an incredible and successful way. Discipline.
How did she feel about her fame? Did she embrace fame, or did she want to hide away in San Martivelle and escape it?
I think she was the most shy person I'd never met in my life. She was terrified by being on a stage, something like this, or she was very also worried when she was doing an interview. She was not relaxed with the popularity that she can have all over her life. Obviously, San Martivelle was absolutely perfect for this. Even if San Martivelle was not a place where she was alone, she was always surrounded by friends, by artists. I mean, there are so many pictures of Joe Eula making paella, of Liza Minnelli coming for dinner. So she took the word to San Martivelle, but she felt protected probably, and only friends were allowed to be there. But she was very shy, very shy.
And was she surprised? How did she feel that her designs, that she remained this best-selling designer after all those years, half a century after she designed them?
Yes, probably she was surprised somehow, but at the same time she was repeating, you see, I was right. I insisted so much to do it this way, and we are still selling it. And more than selling, it's not important for her that people were buying it. It was much important for her that people were still loving her pieces. Mm-hmm. That mother were used to give the open heart to the daughter, or to buy, that it became something that really comes from heart. that you give to somebody that you really love. Also, this was important for her. And realizing that it was still without, doing so much, because Elsa was, as I said, shy. She was not giving interviews, maybe only to you. She gave an interview a few years ago in New York Penthouse, in Rome. It was in Rome.
Yes.
It was really an event. But just not because she was feeling like being the divine artist, but just because she was uncomfortable talking about herself and being on the stage. But yes, she was very happy that people were still loving her pieces.
And she wore her bone cuff every day. What other piece of jewelry did she wear every day?
But she was not wearing so many. Obviously, she was because she wanted to feel her pieces. She loved so much this Paco cuff. The Paco cuff, I don't know if you can. Few people know it. It's in production for Tiffany. It's something that she designed many years ago. It's beautiful. Probably has not been so much advertised by the company in the stores, but it was something she was wearing together with the bone cuff. And then she was wearing the belt. She loved her belt. And she was wearing always a very tiny diamonds by the yard, very small, a 0.3, even less. And the comma earrings, always the comma earrings. Always in silver. I've never seen Elsa wearing gold. She also was saying that since she was, the hair were brown and now they were white, it works much better to wear silver for an older lady. And it's true, it was so chic.
Everything was chic.
I believe so. It was a different kind of chic. It was not the typical American upper class chic of the time, which was fantastic, beautiful, but different. Elsa was naturally chic. It was class. It was a question of blood. It was not a question of attitude. It was very natural. And the way she smoked, the way she moved her hand, it was absolutely inspiring for everybody and inspiring respect, which was something like a queen, that you feel the royalty.
The queen of jewelry design, that's for sure. What would she have liked her legacy to be?
For sure, the importance of the name of her father, because when she decided to establish the charity foundation in the 2000, she really wanted to make it eternal in order to remember the name of her father. So in terms of, because there are two kinds of legacies, now you can talk about personal legacy and the legacy of your art that are different. So I believe that in this moment, I think what I can say is that the foundation she established to do the good for the good, to do things really for helping people. Because yes, it's a charity foundation, but it's also involved in philanthropy, in human rights protection, in environmental protection. And this way of thinking of Elsa to give back something that she has received, it was very important for her. And this kind of respect for the people who are disadvantaged or that are less lucky of she was, it's a way for her to give back to the world, to thank the world for what she received. And she wanted to do in the name and in the memory of Nando Peretti, of her father.
That's so nice. And she's left us all this legacy of these wonderful jewels that generations will keep wearing and passing on.
Absolutely,
through their
yes.
families.
And to inspire also some new artists to develop it, because in my eyes, after Elsa, at the moment, I really don't see nobody, no other jewel designer that made the same revolution. There are fantastic jewelry designers, there are fantastic ideas, but such an important turning point has not been done yet. And for the moment, from an historical point of view, I think that we are stuck with Elsa Peretti. This was the last revolution in jewelry design.
We're happy with that. We are happy. We are stuck with her. And thank you so much, Stefano, for sharing some insights into her work ethic and her work and life with her. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol. It has been very important for me to talk with you, very emotional. And I hope to see you very soon in London.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank thank you for listening. For this and other episodes of If Jewels Could Talk, please go to our website, carolwoolton.com/podcasts, or the link in my bio on Instagram at carolwoolton. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast feed and leave us a rating and a comment. We would love that. Thank you. Join me again in 2 weeks for the next Jeweled Nugget, when I'll be talking about a collection created for one of the world's greatest rock stars. Join me then. Goodbye. If Jewels Could Talk with Carol Woolton is produced by Natasha Cowan, music and editing by Tim Thornton, graphics by Scott Bentley, illustration by Jordi Labanda, and you can find me on Instagram at Carol Woolton.